tongue is numb, the current's clean. Your dog is dead, it's a Ponzi screen. Ponzi screen, Ponzi screen, because it's just something to do.
Who do you think voiced the yellow M&M?
Mike Myers.
Really good guess.
Sinbad.
JK. That's also good. JK Simmons.
Oh.
I found that out. Yeah. Old. The one of the best character actors in modern history. He's the. Oh, I'm the yellow M&M. I'm not smart.
You know who?
Did you know that?
You know who voiced the really, really sexy, sultry green M&M? It was Meryl Streep, actually. She's an amazing actress. She can do anything.
I thought it
Are you
was Kathleen Turner, but I'll go with Meryl Streep.
Oh,
She sounds like I imagine the green M&M being Catherine Zeta-Jones. I don't know why. She just feels like the green M&M. Does that make sense?
yeah, it really does. I mean,
Yeah.
or the mistress from Uncut Gems.
Oh, something Fox. That's her name, right? Yeah. I was watching I was watching a YouTube video, and Billy West, the guy who does all those voice actor work, he's the red M&M, and he was just like, "Do you guys know who the yellow M&M is? It's J.K. Simmons." And I was like, "What? From what? From Oz? From Whiplash? That J.K. Simmons?"
Yeah, yeah. He's just like punishing the red M&M for not drumming properly.
I got my wires crossed when you said J.K. Simmons, and I thought J.K. Rowling, and I was like, the turf.
Yeah.
Not only is
she's
she a prolific author, but also a voiceover actor.
She's the blue M&M who's always just like, I'm so worried. Someone's gonna call me a turf.
What if the red M&M goes into my bathroom?
Yeah. All right, buddy. You watch out. I'm the red M&M. You better. I'm the rude one.
Oh yeah, he was the rude one. And what does the yellow M&M sound like? He sounds like Pooh Bear. I like.
No, he's like, oh hey there. I'm the yellow M&M. I might be a little developmentally disabled. Who knows? I just accidentally fall into holes.
They're doing a real George and Lenny sort of Mice and Men.
Yes.
They really have that. Yeah.
Yes, the yellow M&M is going to accidentally kill the green M&M because he loves her too much.
Oh my god, dude! M&M's is literally just trying to recreate of Mice and Men in its advertising, slowly, very slowly.
Yes. Oh my god! Thank you for helping me come to this realization. This is beautiful.
Welcome to Ponzi Scream, where everything is beautiful in Brooklyn. We're all happy here. How you guys doing today?
I'm feeling great, man. Yeah, Brooklyn's good. It's overcast, and it's almost jacket weather. We're all going to be back inside soon, which is perfect. You know, that's not where coronavirus spreads more.
You know how I know you're
rampantly.
doing. You know how I know you're doing really well, Gabe? You're rubbing your temples and closing your eyes.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh yeah, I'm fucking. Just great.
Yeah.
It's I have been fine. I will say this: R.I.P. Caviar, the food delivery service that I was anonymously working for. Every time I said, "Oh, I deliver food," it was through Caviar. And the reason I don't deliver through them anymore is because they got gobbled up by DoorDash.
Whoa.
That's right. DoorDash bought Caviar. It happened actually almost a year ago, and nothing happened for a long time. And then about 3 months ago, DoorDash was just like,
I'm your father now, and now you get ready. It's us now.
And it went from being a okay place to deliver food or an okay service to deliver food through to being bad. So now I'm on Uber Eats doing that.
Now, can you say, did they treat their workers worse at DoorDash? What's the why? Do you think that there's like worse quality? Is it worse quality for the consumer or for the staff?
It is. I think Caviar was good because they made eventually their system so that I think the tip was very tipping people was very forward facing. So like 3 years ago, it was not at all, and then like a quarter of people would tip. It was crazy. It was crazy. But then they switched things around, and it was much more forward facing, and it would make it so you could make a lot more. But DoorDash, I think it's not as much that. Plus, they are also they are going to restaurants and getting food from restaurants that you are not picking up on caviar. Like, same with Uber Eats. Actually, they are both getting food from like fast food. And I'll tell. I mean, like I think I've mentioned it once or twice. Like I railed against like the people who would order milkshakes off of caviar from like from Shake Shack or whatever. Like, what are you doing? You know? But it didn't happen that often. It happened maybe like once a year or something like that. First day I did Uber Eats, I got 3 milkshakes in 3 separate orders. So it's just sort of like, yeah, it's just sort of like off the chains, like the Wild West.
You sure it wasn't like an Antifa thing?
I wish I was delivering. I wish I was still like, oh, this is a heavy milkshake. It has cement in it.
No, it's just it's just a French tourist who's like holed up in an Airbnb who's like, would like a McFlurry?
yeah. I'm delivering for a lot more fast food right now, which is like a mixed blessing because, dude, McDonald's, that place is a factory. They get their shit done fast. You are not waiting for orders to be completed.
That's not true. That's not true, dude.
No.
When I went to the McDonald's on the Lower East Side, they had it was completely automated except for one worker, and it took I shit you not, it took 45 minutes to get a small fry and a medium Coke.
No, wait, no. David, did you go to the Delancey Street McDonald's?
Yeah, it's horrible.
That's the worst McDonald's on all of planet Earth. Gabe, you have to know about like this McDonald's too. Like it's like the West Village McDonald's and the Delancey Street McDonald's are basically like, it's like that's where humanity begins.
You look stupid. See me outside. See me outside right now. See me outside. Fucking see me outside. Yeah, come on. Yeah, come on. You what? Yeah, I took that shit. Take that shit too. Take that. Come on. What you doing? What you doing? You ready? Ready? You fucking ready? You ain't fucking ready. Let's go. Boom. Whoa! One here! Oh! Oh! Shit! Oh, with the soda!
Yeah, that's year 0. That's
Yeah.
the workers there are fish that have just started crawling out of the primordial ooze, and it's very slow
because
there's
there's
a very
one
slow
worker.
start on land.
Guys, it's not like primordial ooze. It's more like Adam and Eve because there's 2 people in 2 locations. They don't do they.
And they made Eve out of a McRib.
Oh.
Yeah, that's right. It's back. No, yeah. No, that place is like famous for like fights breaking out and shit like shit like that. You can't expect anything. Don't expect more from the Delancey Street McDonald's.
I would
that's
fight
just
one of those kiosks, man. I would fight one of those kiosks. I hate them. I hate the kiosks. Just the most inefficient. There's like 4 different numbering systems with those kiosks things. It's like there's like one of them has like A through F, and the other one has like like 3 numbers. There's no letters at all, and then another one is just web dings. Like there's no way of knowing what numbers are. You can't know when your order is coming up. Anyways, welcome to Ponzi Scream. So we are here. We're talking about the eco-yogi slumlords of Brooklyn. Just the hottest story out of the cut that I've seen in a while. This first came up in Gothamist earlier this year during the COVID pandemic, where there were some folks that were all being evicted, and some tenants' rights organizations were just protesting outside of this house in Crown Heights. And I remember reading the article, and the author interviewed one of the protesters, kind of trying to support the people who were getting evicted. And it was this it was this Connecticut college professor who had biked all the way from another neighborhood to scream at the landlord for evicting these people in Crown Heights, and said, "You white liberal, phony, fake, selfish motherfucker.
I love it.
Yeah, you belong in a Dickens novel," which is just like an amazing quote. And it's like, and it's really amazing. The cut did, I think, a great job of just finding that lead on a story from Gothamist, and then just digging so deep into how much just absolute corruption and insanity this couple were running with and all with like the Brooklyn aesthetic sort of stuff.
Weaponizing the new age and hipster aesthetic and yoga language.
Yeah.
For
Gabe,
yeah.
You found this article, Gabe? Would you want to give like a basic overview on like what these people did? Because I think I remember when what David was saying when COVID first broke out, there was like, I saw like a thing on Twitter like, oh, looks like there was a protest in front of like a random apartment or something like that.
Sure. Well, in New York, we've been fortunate enough to have a moratorium on evictions, but at the same time, they haven't. I think this was a huge fear in April and May and June because no one knew whether or not they would get evicted, and and fortunately, a lot of people haven't yet. I mean, but it's going to come. That's like on the horizon. However, the reason this story stuck out was that it was a case where I think there were at least 8 residents in this one building who were being evicted by their landlords. And the idea, it's easier to put a face to these landlords because they're pretty small fry. They're not a big real estate company. It's just a couple. And in that, I think that's what makes it fascinating, is that they kind of, their entire business model is putting on the face of New Brooklyn white urban pioneers.
Oh yeah.
They fit all of the aesthetics, the aspirational aesthetics of sort of upper middle class bohemian Brooklyn life.
Oh yeah.
And
yoga and babies. Yoga and babies. Yoga
area
and
yoga.
babies.
Who I've sent this to some friends, and they were some women who were like, "Yeah, we definitely went to an area yoga class at least once."
People describe the area yoga in that neighborhood as ubiquitous as Starbucks.
Yeah. And so when it comes to like this couple, I just have a quick anecdote. I used to work at a real estate company, and the real estate company, I was like the bottom tier agent, but the guy who was the face of the company wore a Slayer T-shirt and a pentagram belt buckle, and he loved to skateboard out front of the office, and he would hire like a bunch of full sleeve tattooed dudes and a really hot looking model. Like, the women and the men that work there all look like Vice magazine dues.
Well, at least they're hot. That's good. Thank God.
That's right. And they had these were not people who really like were up on real estate law or ethics. But there were of course like big multinational backers behind this, but this guy was the face of the real estate company. And there's a term I like called a Judas goat. And a Judas goat is, goats would get shipwrecked on islands, and they would eat everything on the island, and they're very hard to hunt because they can hide in nooks and crannies in the mountains.
Yep.
So what you do is you take a really hot goat and you put a tracking device on it,
Oh,
and then you
yeah.
send it off into the mountains, and then it attracts all the other goats and creates a sex harem with them, and then you can go kill all the goats. So why did I bring that? Why did I bring that up, guys?
Why?
Yes.
I think that you meet these people that kind of fit this bohemian aesthetic. This they represent this aspirational fantasy of what life in Brooklyn is, when they're really just scam artists, and it's ultimately for the service of capitalism or
Absolutely.
capital. And
Mhm.
in the case of both the real estate agent and in the case of this couple who turned out to be, slumlords who used the language of the shared economy, Burning Man, gift economy language,
Yes.
health language, and sort of like a new agey spirituality. They used all that to extract money from people without proper worker compensation or proper protections for their tenants, because this is a case where there's both yoga studios where they're exploiting people and also their housing situation where they're exploiting people.
Yeah, no, these people, this is sort of like orcs versus Urukai in Lord of the Rings, because hear me out. Because the orcs are like the classic hippie shitheads. Like, I used to live in a house of 10 people, and it was filled with like your average hippies, and what have you. And they were dumbasses and didn't have any kind of like knowledge when it came to just keeping their shit together, but they were generally good meaning people, and they're just orcs. These people, they are the distilled evil of the Urukai, manifested by like the white wizard that makes them have the same aesthetic of that sort of like freewheeling lifestyle, but they have that sort of like money know-how that just fucks over so many people in their general vicinity. I'm looking at the pictures of them right now in the article, and
Yeah.
the dude is just like, he kind of actually looks like Jerry Falwell Jr. if he was like a slimmer, which is kind of funny.
Brooklyn Jerry
And
Falwell.
yeah, he absolutely looks like Brooklyn Jerry Falwell Jr. if his head was like half the width, And the woman is just sort of like, this sort of like, her face is very just sort of like at ease and like, I am so at center with myself.
I'm not gonna lie.
And
I'm not gonna lie. I think they're both hot. I think.
I think they're
What do you guys
I
think?
think they're mild. I think they're mildly good looking for 47-year-olds.
Yeah.
Like,
AKA incredibly hot for 47-year-olds.
No.
Okay, I want to just go over into their background really quick. Okay, so Gennaro Brooks Church is from like the suburbs of Chicago. Oh no, sorry, Loretta Grenville, the woman, is from the suburbs of Chicago. But Gennaro Brooks Church, also Loretta Grenville is not a licensed yoga instructor. Important to keep in mind. Then
No.
Gennaro Brooks Church is from the resort island of Ibiza. Okay, he's the son of outlaw parents. Hippies hunted by the feds for 2 anti-war bombings in the 1980s until his mother turned himself in, and his father reportedly got caught in Arkansas trying to pick up $6 million in cocaine.
Yeah, you got to shoot your shot. And here's the thing about that. Like, his parents sound pretty cool, but they also sound like the libertarian brand of cool. They are Hans. They could be Han Solo and Leia, and he's their Kylo Ren. He's
right.
Yeah.
He also reminds me of his back. His parents are cool. It reminds me of several politicians we know that were recently running for office, or some still are, who had cool parents and ended up being con men.
They all become these like sons of like children of Marxists and end up becoming total capitalists. So Brooks Church ends up becoming an adherent of something called human design, a pseudoscience combining astrology and chakras, which was created on Ibiza in 1992 by an advertising executive who claimed to receive messages on the meaning of life from an entity called the Voice. I mean, we're going to get into this later, but this just sounds like a religion that is straight up a multi-level marketing scheme. If it
Well,
like,
yeah. It-
Yeah, it sounds like Mormonism. Like he got the golden plates, and he's just like, yeah, the
he was
Voice
an
told me this.
advertising executive. Like, at least Joseph Smith had the dignity of calling himself a preacher. You know, like, just it's absurd.
And Ibiza is also like it's the Jersey Shore and like the meatpacking district mashed together with Burning Man vibes, and everybody speaks Spanish. So
Oh,
he grew up on a party island.
Oh, this is
Nice.
That's so crazy. Okay, so another fun thing about this man and about Brooks Church is that in 2011 he tried to build a literal man cave under his front yard.
I
He's
love
one
that.
of those guys. Yeah, he's one of those guys.
He's like I go in the yard, I practice my beastinetics, which is a high impact workout routine that where I just use my muscles and act like I'm a primate. I'm on keto, and he's got a man cave. That's awesome. I love that.
The
It was shut down by the Department of Buildings, by the way, which is funny.
Sick.
I just love the idea of a guy coming in a reflective jacket, just like just like city worker for 35 years. Like, I'm sorry, sir, but your man cave is not up to code.
Yeah. your golden throne with 70s Playboy images is just not up to our standards. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
He's like, we got reports that you were drying meat in here. You were trying to cure your own deer meat in here, bro. That's a health code violation.
Just because the hunting rifle is in the man cave doesn't mean you can't have a hunting rifle in Brooklyn. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So I mean it's amazing the like aesthetic that they had, right? So they had a daughter named Saomi, two sons named Casimir and Zapata. Yeah, well, they were he's Spanish, so I think he gets a little bit of a pass.
Yeah,
and,
that just means shoe. His son's name is just Shoe.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. I just
Lady Shoe.
Yeah, lady. Yeah, that's right.
He's
Yeah,
a
yeah.
lady
It's
shoe.
he's a female shoe.
And so, but they had a profile in Brooklyner, which is a whatever. Anyway, so there's this quote from the Brooklyner profile of them from 2013. In the kitchen, light streamed in through floor-to-ceiling windows as his girlfriend, a baby in her arms, cooked up some eggs on a stainless steel range. Their other two children ran around the townhouse on floors made of salvaged wood. I mean, we know.
Oh my God.
We know this. We've seen this on our Instagrams. We have been inundated with this dream and this posture of the like kind of like white millennial Brooklyn aesthetic. I mean, they're Gen Xers, but same difference. And in the meantime, what they're doing to fund all of this stuff is hustling and bankrupting and over leveraging their debts like they're a Trump organization. I mean, that's the easiest comparison that I can think of is that Trump in the 90s, and I don't mean to compare everything to Trump, but like Trump in the 90s was completely over leveraged. All he was doing was going into debt, and the only way that he would get out of debt is by trying to start a new endeavor. You know why he had an airline, why he had a steak, why he had a water, why he had multiple resorts? I mean, because he was addicted to it, to starting new things, and as a result, needed to pay back his former things. And so it just it created this negative feedback loop that was incredibly risky. And for people like that, as soon as there's a single blip, a single change in the market, they'll just completely go under. And when people go under, that's when you start to see all the horrible shit that they were doing to get to where they were in the first place.
It's their house of tarot cards collapsed.
Yeah, no, I just look at it and what you were saying, David, just about like the cultural aesthetic of it. Like I remember this so clearly, and I guess it's weird because I guess it technically was like 7 or 8 years ago, but like, God damn it, that was so idealized just even less than a decade ago, and it's like you look at it and you think like there's something wrong here. There's something wrong with this picture. Like it doesn't feel right. And then just like you say, there's like a tiny, tiny, tiny little pinprick in the veneer, and it's just nothing. It's a facade, you know?
Right. I mean, and also like aesthetically, I think that minimalism can be like really oppressive. You know, like ornament and decoration and whimsy are all nice things. And the late aughts, early teens aesthetic of this, you know, salvaged wood, stainless steel range stuff is just it's really bad. And I don't know. In some ways, the medium becomes the message. It shows just how oppressive it is aesthetically, which in this specific situation ended up being actually economically oppressive against their employees
Yeah.
and their tenants. And in some ways, the employees were tenants. I mean, there were situations where like they had first off, a lot of their employees were independent contractors, but they
Oh yeah.
or they were like work study students who would clean the yoga studios unpaid during karma hours in
I know.
exchange for classes, and employees did double duties as receptionist. There were situations where you would get a kickback or you would get some sort of benefit. Like Brooks Church would offer workers free yoga classes in exchange for a day of labor in his building business, or free classes to guests when the couple began renting out their Carroll Gardens brownstones on Airbnb for $200 a night. So you just end up becoming either a customer and a tenant, or you end up becoming a tenant and a worker, or a student and a worker and a tenant, like all at once. And they're just kind of exploiting everyone and raking everything in to do another endeavor. Sorry, siren. One sec. Full of exciting things in my apartment today.
Yeah.
So the whole thing was just they were just kind of like putting people through the meat grinder of this whole system.
What David, one thing that this makes me think about is like, you know, on Street Fight Radio they always talked about like petty the tyranny of small business owners. And with these guys, one thing I notice is the sort of the blurring of all boundaries seems to be something that modern like predatory business owners use, right? They blur the boundaries where it's like, are you my tenant? Are you my friend? Are you my apprentice? Are you an independent
Yes.
contractor?
Totally.
So you're everything other than an employee. And there's also fits into this like sort of Silicon Valley aesthetic of life hacking, and also
Yeah.
and also this hustler mentality of like, well, what corners can I cut? Right? We're doing
Totally.
something new and innovative by being disruptive, which really just means undermining all safe business practices that protect employees from employers. Like they called the woman Gendeville the queen of loopholes. Like she would always,
Cool.
you know, so it's like, oh, it's cool. She's innovative. She's finding ways to cut corners and like find solutions and workarounds. But it's like, no, you're just not doing things the right way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy too, because they really are on the bleeding edge of doing this stuff for the first time. Like you mentioned, David, that they were like they delineated a lot of their workers as independent contractors. But even as like, you know, as short as 2012, 2013, that wasn't a thing yet. Like, you know, there was no Uber Eats, there was no caviar, there was none of this stuff. So for them to be like, oh, wait a minute, I found this delineation where I actually don't have to pay people like living wages necessarily, like they were really ahead of the game.
Well, it is a little more common. It didn't make as much headlines, but like it's actually common in like really strange entertainment sectors, like in the WWE, for example. All of them are technically independent contractors. All of the wrestlers are.
Really?
Yeah, but they can't. But at the same time, they have also an exclusion clause in their contract, which means that they can't work or appear on other wrestling programs, which is that is the definition of an employee, is that an employee
Yeah.
works just for you. You control the ways in which an employee operates. That is how an employee works. And yeah, so they just, say what you will about the Uber people, but Uber drivers can be Uber, Lyft, Juno, Get, and any other one all at the same time. And if they wanted to get the weird, taxi medallion, they could do that as well. I've seen taxis who are registered as both, and that is somewhat closer because the idea is that you can work for multiple companies at once. But these people, did they even have an opportunity to work at different yoga studios at once? I'm not even really sure.
I don't even think they did, but that's the funny part is that like they weren't concerned with non-exclusivity because they were just like chopping and screwing the unpaid internship on these people. So they're not. It's not like they're like, we can't use your labor. You got to work for us. It's more just like, yeah, we'll give you this free Reiki lesson.
And I'm just skeptical of anybody that uses these. They're weaponizing this sort of already exploitative practice that I call when a job is mission driven. Then like you see this in nonprofits where because the nonprofit has a good vision or mission statement, it finds a way to justify paying people less, and it makes you feel guilty when you're not doing the work. Or the same thing with education, with teaching. It's always easy to tell teachers that you can pay them, that they shouldn't be paid as much because they're doing it for the kids, right? Like, why would you go on strike? It's for the kids.
Right.
And
it's like
with-
the idea that you enjoying your job and getting paid a living wage are zero sum mutually exclusive things, and that you're like, punished for liking your job.
And with these, so it's more just like it's emotionally exploitative. It's almost like they not only have your body, but they're trying to take your mind as well. By guilting you into feeling bad if you ask for more. So this couple, they created this aesthetic around themselves that, hey, we're artists, we're your friends, and we have someone here quoted saying, "I thought they were like a peace, love, and happiness types. They were artists." So their employees see them as like, oh, these are gurus. They're not like employees. You're willing to do more for a religious figure than you are for someone who's just like your boss at Staples.
Yoga on the outside, pure capitalism on the inside, as one former area yoga employee puts it. So, and then behind the scenes, Genville and Brooks Church were exploiting the city's growing underclass for a short-term, reliable cash flow. Employees working without benefits and tenants paying up to $1,000 each for a single room in an illegal conversion. By this year, it appears the landlords are pulling in nearly $10,000 a month at Dean Street alone. So all of this is just funded on the blood, sweat, and tears of your growing underclass. Like for them, and this is what a slumlord really does, is that they will use the high needs of their poor tenants as collateral almost to continue to take out higher risk real estate endeavors. Like if you are a slumlord, you don't give a crap about rats, the floors caving in, the heat turning off, the gas turning off, just any sort, like any other sort of problem. The fact that there were like 9 people in a 1-bedroom zoned apartment, this sort of stuff you can just do. And because of the scarcity and insecurity, the scarcity of the housing and the insecurity of your tenants, you can lean on them. And you can lean on them, and that is actually a safe form of income that you can use to open up your area yoga.
This is the funniest line for me because like you were saying, they had these illegally zoned sort of like properties that shouldn't have had as many rooms in it. And this one quote is just says, Gendeville and Brooks Church weren't registered as landlords of the Department of Housing, Preservation and Development. Instead, they posted signs on their rental properties that warned, all caps, "Do not let anyone from the city in. No exceptions."
Jesus.
Yeah,
Fucking hell.
which is so funny. And then it goes on later to say, over the past 2 years, Gendeville had racked up over $50,000 in unpaid fines from a host of violations at 1214 Dean Street.
Wow. Oh yeah, and Brooks Church himself lied about being a licensed real estate broker.
Right. So
Just-
she wasn't yoga certified, and he wasn't a licensed real estate broker.
Yeah, just amazing fraud. Oh, amazing fraud.
One anecdote I like is that when tenants demanded Brook Church take care of the rat situation at one of the buildings, he warned them, "The walls are full of rat skeletons. Their souls will haunt you."
I mean, and it's funny
Jesus.
because it's like he's not necessarily wrong. It's like, God knows. It's like, look, I remember one somebody came to, I got like a piece of mail, a letter in the mail, and it was just one of those standard like, oh, make sure you have like a mesh screen on your window things, and whatever. But it listed some of the details about my building. My building is 100 years old.
Oh,
It was
yeah.
made in 1920. So when these people say there's a cemetery of vermin skeletons in the walls, they're not necessarily wrong, but it doesn't make it right that they're not doing anything about it.
I mean, what's amazing is that any building that's calls itself pre-war is going to be 100 years old in very soon. So a pre-war building is a century-old building. But yeah, it's they did some good stuff, and they would mess up, and they would totally screw over their employees too. So by 2017, just as retail spending was beginning to dip in the face of online shopping, Genville had 14 area stores in the wealthiest neighborhoods in Brooklyn. And this is one teacher.
14.
This is one teacher. She said, our eyes would just get bugged when we'd hear she was taking on another lease. We'd go, oh my God, why doesn't she just get us toilet paper?
And
Insane.
you brought up Trump earlier, and I think that there is something that if you have common sense, you see these people's behavior and you go, this is unsustainable. But then there's something about our sort of ideology around the businessman or the hustler that, well, they must be, it's also attractive to hear that somebody's got a bunch of projects they're working on that are slightly mysterious. And you're like, it's so crazy, it might just work. Like that, maybe her talking a big game about, I'm opening up a bunch of other places, trust me. This is when we're tightening our belts. But the big payoff is just around the corner, guys. Follow me.
Yeah, it's one of those fortune favors the bold sort of,
Right.
kind of like false altruisms. I mean, this is really, and so then the funniest thing is just they get so bold that they start cheating on each other, and
they're just bad people.
Yeah,
too.
Genville just starts cheating on her children's Manny. So basically, this guy named Shepard Lance, which I think we should all just like pause on that name and just like reflect on who a man named Shepard Lance is. He calls himself a carpenter, a pet sitter, a waiter, and a handyman. He had modeled in a portfolio of erotic photography. He had been to Burning Man. Been to Burning Man.
My man, that's that was the
So,
yeah.
So she
go on.
So her and Shepard Lance start this affair. They're getting caught spending the night in a yoga studio. Like all the time, they have to cancel these classes for a few times because they wanted to do a personal ayahuasca ceremony. In February 2017, she and Lance were arrested at the Gowanus Whole Foods for shoplifting $1,150 worth of items. The charges were eventually dropped.
How do you steal $1,200 worth of Whole Foods stuff? You got to fill a cart with just like the nicest bacon you possibly can.
A lot of jamon iberico. That's what I'm thinking. Big old legs of Spanish ham.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, part of me does wonder, like, because there were times where the article cites that they were actually homeless themselves because they were renting out every other property that they owned, which is really insane to me and really points to the fact that this might just be a disease for these people. Right? Like, do they need to steal $1,150 from Whole Foods? No. Did they want to do it anyways because they wanted to see who they could screw over? Yes.
Almost certainly.
Almost certainly. And after that happens, they divorce, and Brooks Church begins renting an apartment on Court Street, which he appointed with $30,000 in living walls. If you guys, know what a living wall is?
Isn't that just a wall with a bunch of plants on it?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's just some plants. It's vertical plants. And there was an article in the Times, and he said, my sex appeal has definitely increased. I'm on social dating apps. They love my living walls, baby.
Ew.
Dude.
No, he just made those so he could literally do the Homer Simpson meme where he's just like backing into the bushes.
He just loves getting hit in his living walls. And yeah, I mean, just in the same time that this is happening, Genville was charged $17,000 in penalties for renting out rooms at their building in Flatbush for illegal transient use. I mean, it keeps going. It's really an amazing article because they just keep on hustling.
Yeah, there's like a CBD business.
One story of it. Yeah.
But David, when you talk, one thing that I think about is like these individuals who are doing this, they are bad as people with their own ethics, but there are also economic and social conditions that allowed for them to exist.
Right.
That created a space for this. And that's kind of what hit me was that they talked about the financial crisis, I think of 2008, and how it really hit all of these black and brown neighborhoods in Brooklyn really hard. But the neighborhood where they were, the sort of up and coming white neighborhood they were in, actually thrived at this exact moment, which created a space for them to sort of mushroom out their different business endeavors to cater to this like affluent white community, right? With yoga and babies.
Yeah.
So what is it about? I mean, that's, and then and the idea of like not looking at housing as, as giving security to people, but sort of incentivizing using housing as like a financing tool.
Absolutely. Yeah, I absolutely. I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense. They really kind of exploited the housing crisis and the gentrification bubble that really did come from that neighborhood, right? Like it came from the Park Slope. That it's not a coincidence that all of Brooklyn looks like Park Slope now, and or Williamsburg, which I don't know how Williamsburg fared in the crisis, but apparently that neighborhood just did very, very well, and then they just used housing and used gentrification as a financing tool to keep it all going. And the people furthest out on the furthest rungs were the ones who were being exploited the most. They were the ones who were hit hardest by the slumlord behavior. And that is kind of, it does sum up how the system of, real estate capitalism and just capitalism in general rewards this sort of behavior. And while these people, like my, this is kind of cheesy, but like my grandpa used to say this thing was like, it's good to like lock up your stuff because it's not that a lock is going to prevent a thief from getting in. It's just to keep good people honest. And capitalism is like keeping your bike unlocked. It allows for good people to be incentivized to be dishonest. And
Yeah.
that is like these people. I mean, I think they sound like scam artists themselves, but in general, when there is a system that rewards and makes it so much easier to be one, everyone's inner demons, everyone's Brooks Church and Gendville comes out in this system.
Yeah. And maybe when I read this, I kept thinking about the guys who ran WeWork, the couple who ran WeWork, and I feel like you could have those two couples go on a double date, and they'd have a lot to talk about.
I'd love to go on a double. I'd love to go. I'd love to go on a double date with these people.
Would you like to join their polycule?
Yeah, dude, they'd be sucking and fucking each other after eating a bunch of hummus or something like that.
I'd go Dutch on the meal and I'd wear a condom, but I mean, they're hot.
They're not attractive. They're like sun-beaten, and like you could tell that this lady is using essential oils instead of going to the doctor. Like you could tell this is not good.
Well,
you could not. It's not good.
Danny, you brought up a really good point at the end of this. Of course, they don't like traditional medicine. And we see that here with
yes.
Brooks Church is participating in a UK-based online discussion called Corona Talks, in which he's described as outspoken against the civil liberty issues of the lockdown, and he started a new company called Elixir Works, which offers a delicious and powerful immune booster containing everything from bee pollen to tree lichin. Monthly for a monthly subscription, baby. Just $37.50 a week.
$37.50 a week. Oh my god!
Oh my god!
And also,
hey man.
Also, he said he declined to comment for the story, and he said to the New York Post that he is being targeted as a white man. It's just
that's the best part.
It is so incredibly annoying how much these people are just displacing pure capitalist exploitation and then calling themselves, like, using identity politics as a cudgel against what is overwhelmingly economic exploitation. Like this happens a lot. It doesn't happen all the time, obviously. Like, these sorts of issues are real, like discrimination and whatever is real, but like, this man is clearly not. It is not about the fact that he's a white man. It is about like, the fact that it is not at all about that. And the fact that he would so callously pivot like that is it's just one of the most frustrating things about this era, because it happens all the time. And you see it on Fox News, especially, is just like, people will be like, hey, this system is terrible. And then Tucker Carlson will go on and say, why do they hate white Christian families?
And it's like a real white Christian family would burn these two at the stake for being witches and warlocks.
Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, no, what you said, David, the pivot is what is almost most jarring. There's this one quote here about one of the people who stayed at their 1214 Dean Street location, who I believe was, that's right, they were recovering from an emergency craniotomy to remove a massive brain tumors.
She had brain surgery. Insane.
She had brain surgery, so this was a tenant of them, and she emailed Gendville begging for a move-out date of August 15th, which I imagine would have been later than she was originally supposed to, and it said, I'm under the most stress I have been in my life. I hope you can empathize with my situation. I'm sorry this year has happened to anyone. And Gendville just wrote back, I don't know who you are. Who is this?
God fucking damn it.
The pivot from being one of those sort of like starry-eyed, soft-smiled, kind of like hippie types, just sort of like, to just being like, who are you? You know,
new phone, who dis?
Yeah. It would juke out fucking Damian Lillard. Just the amount of just like yeah, that they're doing.
And after some of the other people in the housing on Dean Street in Crown Heights were like queer people of color, and who are generally usually the most oppressive people on earth, right? I mean, just throughout history, they have been conquerors. Alexander the Great was a woman of color.
Genghis Khan
Adolf Hitler,
had
Genghis Khan.
Genghis Khan. The saddle he rode on was a rainbow flag.
So this is what happened was basically Martinez found another rental in Flatbush. So one day she walked past Jen DeVille's most recent endeavor, a cafe called Planted Community Cafe. Jen DeVille was sitting under a rainbow pride flag and waved at her manically. And
Maniacally,
manic pixie dream girly.
yes, it's this case is it's unique in a way because even though there are a lot of other evictions that are maybe have like a similar taste or feel to it, it's it's good to see in a way just like that raw capitalism just sort of like actually just completely blaze through these people in real time because the stock market as it is currently, it's like it's going up. Like Apple and Tesla, they just split their stocks. They're making more money than ever, but these people, they're not at that level. They're not that high up. And when coronavirus happened and just actually started affecting people, they were not left unscathed. And you got to see this teeny little pyramid just like slowly just crumble, and the result of that is just like two glassy-eyed psychos just in front of a pride flag, like it's at the same time incredibly frustrating, but also a little bit liberating.
Judas goats, baby. Watch out for people that come with smiles on their faces and brand new, innovative, and disruptive ideas, and try to enroll you into free labor under the promise of peace, love, and community.
Yeah. Gabe, I don't know if you remember this, but I would say like one of the first times that we hung out, and this probably was like 5 years ago, actually.
15 years ago.
Yeah, it was when you were still doing real estate stuff, and I remember you said that like New York real estate is sort of like it's like about sort of like fitting into the cracks. It's like one of those things where you can it's like you could live here, you can make it work, but you kind of just have to be flexible and just not ask for too much and not try to demand too much, and I remember you said something to the effect of like if you're like a single mother, who wants to live on the first floor with a washer and dryer and accessibility to the apartment, that's not going to happen necessarily. But if you're like a dude with a bag, you could fit in there,
Yeah.
And but like these people, I feel like they tried to sort of almost in a way just sort of they're the kind of people who are in a way bleeding New York dry because they're just taking and taking and taking and taking, and making it just so much more inaccessible for everybody else, just for what? For what? So they can have a shitty studio where they fuck on the floor and make the yoga studio smell worse than it already would.
Yeah.
Like, who cares?
Yeah. It's also, I mean, maybe that's why everyone's so skinny in New York, because they're squeezing through these cracks all the time, And it's also part of the reason, like, why having a family is, like, almost seen as a luxury in New York City. And
yeah,
I don't know if you guys have been listening to Nice White Parents, but that podcast that the New York Times is putting out, but it's just like talks about how wealthy parents in public schools have just overwhelming influence in how a school is run, essentially, and perpetuating segregation. And when you have it where it is so financially challenging to even have a family, that and in order to get to that situation of financial stability, you need to hustle so hard to be able to afford to have a family, to be that wealthy, it is almost unsurprising that these wealthy parents are just the most vulturous, vicious PTA moms and dads on earth. Just
Yeah. Well, you stop worrying about the commons, and you only worry about your tribe, your blood, your direct descendants.
because
You
that's
know,
what got you there. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to become Cersei Lannister to
Yeah.
you know, to keep your brood alive. And this is a little bit of a tangent, but I had a very unique situation because I was both renting apartments at the same time that I was working as a teaching artist. So I was in Greenpoint, and I was going into this school, and I was observing classes at this school, and the school had a dual language program. It had a French. One of the classes was French,
Oh
right?
yeah.
And the rest
Oh
of the school
yeah.
was all just normal gen ed. And at the same time, I had a woman who was a client with kids, and she was desperate to live within the school district so that she could send her kid to that school so they could go to that French program. Now,
Hmm.
because I had been in that school already, all I observed that the gen ed kids had teachers that had 30 years experience, loving teachers, great teachers. The classes were filled with Polish, Russian, Puerto Rican, black, just all the kids, and they were all
Oh
sweet.
yeah.
The one French class had a teacher whose only reason that she was in there was that she also knew French. She was like a second year teacher, soft, didn't know anything. But all of these rich parents wanted their kids in that class, and that classroom was full of sociopaths. Like the little kids named Etienne or whatever, just like breaking desks and like sitting under desks and like just shitting in corners.
No.
And it was like, but on paper, that class is what raises the real estate value in the neighborhood. On paper, that class is the one that raises the desirability of that school. And it's like all of these white entitled parents are running after the wrong brass ring. The thing that they think is valuable is actually a worse experience for their children.
Totally.
Like if I
Yeah.
yeah.
That's so yeah, and even on its face, it's so hilarious too because it's like, what are you talking about? You have a French immersion class when the most utilitarian language you could possibly speak in New York City is Spanish. Just it's like if you could speak Spanish, you could speak with so many people here, but you've instead decided to be like, no, I'm gonna teach my child French so they can talk to the $1 million suit designers in Williamsburg. Like, what?
French.
What are you talking about?
I talk about this with my girlfriend whose father is French and she has a French name. French to Americans equals money. That's all it is.
Yeah.
The French language,
Yeah.
French culture equals money. We are not exposed to just, middle class, lower class French culture. All of our French culture is expensive cheese, expensive wine, expensive perfume. It is just the upper crust. And so people often, instead, if they don't want to talk about how rich they are, they'll talk about how much they like French culture. And that is so endemic to New York City. And actually, if you guys listen to that podcast, the Nice White Parents one, they talk about French language. The French language program is also used as an economic overlay as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
So, but it's nonsense, and buyer beware. Like even wealthy people are getting bamboozled by what they're being off on what's being offered to them.
Well, they're being
Like that-
bamboozled only to the extent that they actually care about learning French. They care about getting the commodity of going to a French school. And in that
Yeah.
in that sense, they are not being bamboozled. They are being economically rewarded. But the product is fraudulent. It's crap. But it doesn't matter to them because it has the same currency as it would otherwise. But they don't care about the actual thing itself.
Right.
Yeah, that visual is so funny because of course you've got, like you said, you've got these 30-year like Greenpoint teachers who are probably just like they're like hard-nosed Polish Americans who can wrangle a child in seconds flat, and then you
Oh, they're
got the
sweet.
second.
Yeah, they're great,
Yeah.
dude. And
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I would have loved to be in those classes as a kid and learn a
Yeah,
little,
yeah.
learn Russian and Polish curse words.
Yeah, what's
Learn how to
actually useful in New York City is Spanish, Arabic, Chinese, and
Yeah.
if you're in Greenpoint, Russian and Polish. And the
Polish. Yeah. it would have made more sense to have somebody teaching the weird dark arts of Polish
Just
over French.
just have a language immersion program that exists for the community itself. Like if it's an Arabic community, just have one class a day that's taught in Arabic. That way all the non-Arabic kids get to learn Arabic as well. And
That's right.
yeah, I mean, and that'll get you into NYU Abu Dhabi really easily or whatever, I mean, if you need some cultural currency, some economic currency, which is just so frustrating, maybe that'll help. All right.
Yeah, teach Polish show at the very. Oh yeah, you're right, Gabe. Teach Polish show at the very least. You can hear what all the 5'1" old ladies pushing carts are talking shit about. Like
Exactly.
I don't know.
That way you know what
Yeah.
their insults are. So one last thing that I think we should talk about really quick, because it's not really like a crime, but it very much relates to the theme of kind of pseudo liberalism or the aesthetics of hippie culture, counterculture in the but wrapped up and being performed by these sorts of just ghoulish capitalists, and that is Peter Thiel is starting a mushrooms company. And I don't mean I mean shrooms. Like he's starting a psilocybin company that will treat depression. Okay, it has already raised $100 million, and his the food FDA gave it in 2018. The U.S. FDA gave it breakthrough therapy status, expediting the development process. Most recent funding rounds suggest a value of more than $500 million. Okay, and
How is that illegal? What is he doing it out of Malta? Like, is it like is that where the LLC is? Like, what the fuck? How is that possible?
it's London based, so a tiny little city called London, and it's founded by a few other folks, and he's getting some initial funding from this German entrepreneur named Angermayer. Okay, that's a little ridiculous.
Nice.
But what is amazing about this? So two things. One, synthetic doses of hallucinogen psilocybin were tested as an antidepressant in the 60s before Nixon banned its use, and that probably goes to show that maybe he was having some internal dispute with the CIA, who was probably trying to use it to melt people's minds and use it as a weapon of war. And Richard Nixon maybe cut that off. I don't know why that little detail exists, but Richard Nixon hated drugs. He did not like having fun. He did not.
Yeah.
He did not think that he was not a cool guy. And now they're back, and they're back with people like Peter Thiel. And the reason why I want to bring up Peter Thiel is that he is one of these Silicon Valley capitalists who has truly emerged as a Lex Luthor type character, right? This guy was an early investor in Facebook, co-founder of PayPal, Palantir Technologies, and he has he's a billionaire, net worth of 2.5, and now he basically just has some capital, private hedge fund, venture capital firm kind of guy. He is also single-handedly responsible, arguably, for shutting down Gawker, because in the earlier part of the last decade, Gawker wrote an article that said, "Hey, look, we have it from credible sources that Peter Thiel is gay," and
yes, that's right.
He was just so humiliated by the fact that someone would ever be gay in San Francisco, which is notoriously a sinful thing to be in San Francisco. And so he wanted to do some suit against them, didn't work. And then later, it turns out he funded lawsuits against Gawker for invasion of privacy to try to get them shut down. And he did. He brought them down into bankruptcy. And he used a lawyer in LA to fund Hulk Hogan's lawsuit. Basically, he allowed Hulk Hogan to do this lawsuit.
That's right.
Completely pro bono.
That's right.
So that Hulk Hogan could sue Gawker for them publishing an article of him getting cucked, I think was what it was. And
yeah. It was very funny because Hulk Hogan, it was Hulk Hogan's sex tape, and it was funny because even in the sex tape, I believe he even said, "Yeah, brother," but like to some extent, like it wasn't. It was truly it truly was a Hulk Hogan sex tape.
Right.
It was undeniably Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
So the jury awarded Hulk Hogan $40 million for invasion of privacy, emotional distress, infringement of personality rights, and Gawker soon announced that it was permanently closing in 2016. So he said his financial support of Hulk Hogan's case as, quote, one of the greater philanthropic things that I've done.
Jesus. Yeah, Peter Thiel, he is an absolute freak, and in a weird way, he is the logical conclusion to the Brooklyn shitheads we were just talking about.
Right.
He is what happens if you take that to the nth degree. It's just instead of being in charge of like one single like mismanaged falling apart brownstone in Crown Heights. It's hi, I am a billionaire who is sucking blood out of younger people so their new blood will course through my old body and keep it young and virile. And now I am the owner of psilocybin manufacturing process that is, by the way, like, again, the legal, like how that's possibly legal or whatever is amazing considering all the, I mean, like look, mushrooms are great. I haven't done them in a long time personally.
He's not going
but
to just use them for good things.
Yeah.
That's all. Yeah. Like he will not just use it for antidepressant.
You can also just grow your own.
Yeah,
So-
bro.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that same hippie household that I lived in. One of the guys in there, his name was, and he like,
snitches get stitches, buddy.
You
better bleep that name out.
Dude, I might. It was so funny because that house was disgusting, but he bought mushroom psilocybin spores online, which you can do. It's legal to buy the spores. And then I just have this very distinct memory of him lysoling a cardboard box, like an Amazon box, and then duct taping like kitchen dishwashing gloves. So he made his own little sterile box.
Hell yeah.
And then he injected the psilocybin spores into a substrate, which is like basically made out of like rice. And I watched the mushrooms grow. I watched them grow and everything. You could do this shit on your own. You don't need Peter Thiel to make terrible ones for you.
So Peter Thiel wrote for the Cato Institute one time that he no longer believes that freedom and democracy are compatible. He also while he was at while he was at Stanford Law School, he also published an article called "The Diversity Myth: Multiculturalism and the Politics of Intolerance at Stanford. The book is critical of political correctness and multiculturalism in higher education and alleges that it has diluted academic rigor." So
what?
Oh yeah, he's a cool guy. He's a very cool guy. He is also has. We may also know him from a few other endeavors that he's attempted to do. I believe that Peter Thiel is one of the people who was really into doing blood transfusions of younger people to live longer. And
Yeah, blood bags.
Yeah.
Blood bags.
yeah, and he also really was supportive of building a libertarian utopia on an artificial island in the Pacific, which is literally just a plot, like a plot from Superman 1. Like that is Lex Luthor's. That's what Lex Luthor wants
Also-
to do.
Yeah. Also, what do you talk about? Build an island. Just use the Great Garbage Patch and like smash it all together
There you
in the
go.
middle of the Pacific Ocean.
There you
You know.
go, yeah. So anyways, he is the one who is going to be profiting off of making mushrooms legal and not your roommate. And that's cool. That's what I love about capitalism is that the best people win.
All
Yeah.
right.
Well,
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you guys anything else? Should we call it quits, guys?
I think that was honestly, it's you know, it's a complicated endeavor, but I think if anything people take away from this, it's just like the gap between Peter Thiel and two Brooklyn shitheads. It's narrower than you think.
Yeah.
It's not that big of a gap.
All right. I gotta let's get out of here, guys. All right. Bye. You guys.
All right. See you all
Yeah.
next week. Thanks for
Okay,
listening
we'll
to
see you
Ponzi
later.
Scream. Rate, review,
Okay.
and subscribe. Bye.
That's
Oh
right.
yeah. Yeah.
That's right.
What Gabe said. Okay. Bye.
Bye bye.